Hello class, in this video we're going to go over the workflow of creating high polygon and low polygon X model, and in the end you will have a low polygon model with a high resolution textures that you can use in the game. Alright, so let's get started. First step, we're going to create a base mesh. So we're going to start with a polygon cube, and let's scale it bigger. And then we're going to go to the insert edge node tool, go to the tool setting, and we're going to choose the equal multiplier, set number as 1, so we can add a edge loop in the center of the top and the side. And then we're going to select the faces on the bottom. And we're going to extrude the face. And by changing the thickness, we can extrude it out. And we're also going to make it thinner. And then we're going to repeat this process to create the other sections. And then you can double click on the edge loop and adjust the shape. And same thing for the top, we're gonna select the top faces and extrude. And by changing the thickness and offset, we can change the shape, and then we can go to the side view to narrow it down and repeat this process to create a blade on the top. Then we can head over to vertex mode, and we can select the vertices in the center and move them down. So by doing this, we're going to create an arc in on the bottom and on the top. And then we can insert an edge loop on each side, and then select the vertices, move them down, and go to the scale, and scale them along the side, the x-axis, so that will make them wider. Alright, and then you can go to the center and select the vertices in the center and make it wider. And here we're going to hold on Shift and right click to go to the multi-cut tool. And then when you cut on the edge, also hold on Shift so you can cut at a particular percentage. And then we can delete the face. And same thing for the other edges. So we're going to use the multi-cut tool to cut a few edges, and then we're going to delete the faces inside. And then you can narrow it down. And then here I would like to make the gap a little bit narrow, but I don't want to change the shape. I don't want to change the blade shape, so I'm going to cut it twice. Then in the center, that way when I delete the faces in the center, I can create a very narrow opening. And then I'm going to delete the actual edge I created. So double click on the edge loop. Here is it, and then you need to hold on Control and delete. You're going to delete the edge with the vertices, otherwise you will have the vertices remain. So hold on Control and hit delete to delete the edge with the vertices. And then we're going to select the edges, and we're going to bridge them to fill the hole. Alright, here we're going to create a cylinder, and subdivision lower it down to 10 and rotate in 90 degrees along Z axis. And we're going to use this cylinder to create a handle. And hit Command D to make a duplication and move it to the other side. And you can also select the faces on the top and extrude, so you can extend it and make other sections. And here create another cylinder. So basically here we're going to create a gear and put it on the handle. Okay, so I'll just block it, put a shape there, and later on we're going to model the details. So here for the insert edge loop tool, as you can see, I changed the setting so I can insert the edge loop at anywhere, not just in the center. Okay, so I'm going to make the top a little bit bigger because this is the wood. Okay. And then I'm going to make a duplication of the gears, and I'm going to move it to the other side. And then extrude the handle so we can extend it. And here I go to the front view. Right, so whenever I extrude it, I can rotate the faces. By doing that, I basically change the shape of the handle. Right, and then we can duplicate this gear. I would like to cover the edge loop on the handle with this gear because later on I'm going to divide this handle with different materials. Okay, so in the center it's going to be covered by cloth. So here for the places that will be covered by cloth, I basically add more subdivisions and I manually change the shape to make some wrinkles. Okay, and for the gear, 20 subdivision is too much, so we're going to delete it and we're going to create another cylinder. And you can press 4 key to go to the wireframe mode so you can see the cylinder we just created, and we can make it bigger. And just delete the old one. So we're going to select the face on the gear and we're going to extrude and make sure turn off, keep faces together. So, all of the faces will be separated. And we're going to push them out to make the gear. And then we can add some subdivisions on the handle, and then you're going to hold the texture and the UV evenly. And next step, we're going to move on to UV mapping. So here we're going to select the blade and we're going to do a planar mapping project from the Z-axis. And then we're going to select the edges on the corner, and we're going to cut the UV. and select the edge loop on the other side, and also cut the UV. So now we can go to the UV shell and double click, and we can separate them. And then we're going to select the edges around the corner and cut the UV, so now we can separate all of them. And for the places where the UV was kind of twisted, you can just select the UVs along that area and unfold it again. So you're going to flatten that area. Right, and then we're going to select all of the UVs, and we're going to unfold, and then we're going to layer all them together. And we're going to move on to the handle. So for the handle, I'm going to also do a planar mapping, project from the z-axis. And here we go. So basically this is the side view of the handle, and we're going to select the edge loop along the bottom, and we're going to cut the UV. And make sure you delete the faces on the side, we don't need them. And then select the whole UV shell, and we're going to unfold it. For the places that is twisted, freeze transformation and delete history, and then unfold the UV. Alright, and then we finish the handle and the top part, and for the gear, we're gonna select all the faces on the side, and we're gonna do a cylindrical mapping. And for the cylindrical mapping, just change the rotation axis. Make sure to cover all of the side faces. And we can also rotate it. So by doing that, we can change the UV border. Alright, and then for the UV scale, we can just manually scale it, matching the original model. And then we can select the side faces and extrude and push them in, and delete the center faces. That way we can make our side faces be a quartz instead of triangles. And you can project the UVs again to just update the UV. And remember to freeze transformation and delete history once you finish the UV. Alright, now we're going to select the gear, and we're going to change it, rename it, and then we're going to duplicate and move it to the other spot. And by holding D key and V key, we can snap the pivot point to its corner, and then we can snap it to the old gears we have created. And repeat this process, so we're going to create the new gears and place them on the old spots. And we're going to delete the old gears we have created. And then select each gear and move their UV out of the frame. And then we're going to select all of them and reorganizing the UVs. And once you've done all of this, we're going to rename each object. And for the handle, close the X. So I'm going to create some edge loops, and I'm going to change the scale of each edge loop to make some wrinkles. And next step, we're going to duplicate this file and we're going to prepare for sculpt. So select the blade and we're going to go to the smooth options and use this option to smooth the X. So basically this is going to add subdivisions on the blade without smooth its shape. So they're going to keep the hard edges. However, this setting doesn't work for the cylindrical shapes. Okay, as you can see, they're going to smooth the gear. However, the proportion of each face have been changed. It's easy. We can just use the insert edge loop tool to manually add some edge loops. Okay, and then as you smooth, you can see that it will keep the gear with its original shape. Right, so we are going to repeat this process to subdivide the other gears. And once you've done this, freeze transformation and delete this history, and then we're going to move on to sculpting. So we're going to send all of this to Mudbox, and we're going to go to the front or the back view. And then we're going to make a screenshot of our blade. And in Photoshop, we're going to copy the top blade in the empty project, and then the center, and then the bottom part of the blade. So basically, we are just use this screenshot as a reference, and we're going to create a pattern on the blade. Right, and then we're going to start to draw a pattern by referencing the wireframe and the shape of the blade. Right, and then we're going to drop in our patterns, the line, and we're going to place it in the center. Okay, and then we're going to create a black color background, pack everything together, and we're going to save this texture image we just created. And then in Mudbox, we're going to log all of the other objects except the blade, and we're going to create a sculpt layer and use the sculpt tool and check invert function and mirror on z-axis. So we're going to sculpt on both sides of the blade, and we're going to add a stencil image for the texture. And we're going to use this texture basically as a reference to sculpt on our blade. As you can see, you're going to sculpt a shape immediately. If you don't like the intensity, and you can just go to the strength and change it. And then this is how it looks, and we're going to repeat this process to create a pattern for the blades. And we're going to load them as a stencil, and we're going to use these images as a reference to sculpt. And then we're going to save this project as a step 3 sculpting. And now we're going to use the flatten tool and turn off the mirror and we're going to flatten the side edges, and you can check on and off the wireframe to examine the meshes. So here we're going to use this tool to flatten the side. Basically, by doing this, we're going to remove the hard edge. And this is how it looks once we finished. And we're going to name this layer as a pattern and flatten, and we're going to create a new layer. And we're going to add a subdivision, create a new layer, and name it as a scratches. Here we'll load a scratch image as the texture, as a stencil, and you may lower down the strength if you feel it's too much. And we're going to apply this scratch texture onto the blade. And this is how it looks once it's finished. And then we can play with the material and choose a different material. The default material is too dark and I don't like it. And I kind of feel this white color material, it looks good. And then we're going to add a noise image, and we're going to use the noise texture as a reference to apply some noise on the surface of the blade. And then you may use eraser tool to erase the noise around the blade. And on the pattern, we also don't want the noise, so we can load the texture image again and use it as a reference to erase the noise on it. Alright, so we're going to rename this layer as the noise, and we can lower down the intensity of the noise. And this is how it looks. And then we're going to go to the handle layer, and we're going to increase the subdivision, and we're going to start to sculpt some cloth texture. And this is how it looks once finished. And then I can stop the I can select the top part and also increase subdivision and create a sculpt layer. And I'm gonna start to sculpt some cloth texture onto it. And then we're gonna go to Sculpt tool and choose a stamp, so we can use that as the brush to sculpt the wood texture. And you can also make some nice scar onto the surface of the wood. And then this is how it looks once we finish the wrinkles on the cloth and also the wood, and then we're going to move on to the gears. So for the gears, first we're going to select the Sculpt tool, and we can load a stencil image. So basically we want to project a texture, a pattern onto its side. And here, as you can see, the mirror doesn't work because it is not in the center. So check the mirror off and lower down the strength. And then we're gonna create a new sculpt layer, and we're gonna use the flatten tool to flatten its hard edges. Alright, this is how it looks once it's finished. I'm going to repeat this process to sculpt all of them. And then we're going to increase the subdivision level on the handle, and we're going to create a new sculpt layer, and we're going to add more details on the cloth. Alright, so this is how it looks. And then same thing for the top part. We're going to sculpt more details on the cloth. And then we'll be finished sculpting our X model, and next step we're going to paint textures onto the X, and we're going to bake texture and export all of the textures for our low polygon base mesh.